Now here's breaking news, exclusively from Blue Eye Media. And now from our global friendly partners at MeidasTouch.
This is a breaking news alert. The suspect who was involved in the shooting of 2 National Guards members in Washington, D.C. earlier in the day was approved for his asylum application by the Trump regime in April of 2025. Let me repeat that. It was the Trump regime that approved the suspect, who we believe to be the shooter and the terrorist who attacked in a premeditated fashion these National Guards members. Trump's regime approved asylum in April of 2025, right? As the Trump regime has been going after grandmas and grandpas and aunts and uncles who have been here in the United States paying taxes, being productive. They've been going in the factories and the farms and the restaurants. Trump has gutted America's counterterrorism capabilities, and it appears that this may be an example where Trump was targeting the wrong people, not the criminals, not the people who were potentially going to be involved in terroristic acts. Trump was going after the people who were being productive. What do we know about this suspect? Let's break it all down, and then I'll show you a stunning admission that Trump made moments ago where he's like, oh, it was Biden's fault because the person was let in 2021, and we didn't even know how to figure out who this person was. But here's what we know about this individual. You see the individual right here. The name is Ramanullah Lakanawal. From Afghanistan, 29-year-old Afghan national, entered the United States in 2021 as part of a group of Afghan refugees who were fleeing from the Taliban. There was a process and procedure there associated with vetting these individuals. And as far as we know, this individual did not engage in any terroristic acts until now. And again, it's just a suspect, but this seems to be the individual. His name is Lakwinal. He entered the United States on a special immigrant visa as part of Operation Allies Refugee during the American withdrawal from Afghanistan in 2021. We believe that his permission to be in the U.S. expired in September, but then later on, he applied for asylum and was granted asylum in April by the Trump regime. Here we have the description of what went down here on CNN. Let's play this.
What we know is that he comes here from Afghanistan. Now, this is a guy who's been living in Washington State, not Washington, D.C., on the other end of the country. He comes here from Afghanistan in the summer of 2021. Remember what that was like. Refugees fleeing Afghanistan. People had to be recommended by U.S. people on one end, vetted on this end by government background checks as far as they could do in Afghanistan, have sponsors and so on. He settled in Washington. He applies for asylum in December of 2024. Now he goes through another vetting process involving that, and he's approved for asylum in April of this year under the Trump administration. He comes in under the Biden administration. These checks are being done. I remember as a part of the Joint Terrorism Task Force in New York, where we supplied people for that vetting process, it was a lot of pressure. There was a lot of people. They were being kept in military installations. A lot of that vetting had to be done very quickly. I also remember we had to go back afterwards when we found information on certain people and bring them back. In this case, that's all we know about this individual, but it appears that he must have done work either for or with the United States and Afghanistan to become part of the Allies Welcome Program and be brought here. That still doesn't get us closer to motive.
No, Now, Donald Trump just held a press conference moments ago, and what Donald Trump said in his press conference is nobody knew anything about it. His status was extended under legislation signed by Biden. Those are going to be key words because it seemed it was actually Trump who granted the asylum application here. So here's what Trump says. I can report tonight that based on the best available information, the DHS is confident that the suspect in custody is a foreigner who entered our country from Afghanistan, a hellhole on earth. He was flown in by the Biden administration in September 2021, one of those infamous flights that everybody was talking about. Nobody knew who was coming in, which is not true. He was vetted at that time. But in terms of the extension and the asylum Asylum. That seems to be under Trump. Nobody knew anything about it. His status was extended under legislation signed by Biden. Here, let's play this clip.
I can report tonight that based on the best available information, the Department of Homeland Security is confident that the suspect in custody is a foreigner who entered our country from Afghanistan, a hellhole on earth. He was flown in by the Biden administration in September 2021 on those infamous flights that everybody was talking about. Nobody knew who was coming in. Nobody knew anything about it. His status was extended under legislation signed by President Biden, a disastrous president, the worst in the history of our country.
Now, folks, we've been reporting for a very long time about how FBI's reassignment to immigration enforcement, rounding up people in grocery stores and restaurants and people who are showing up for their court appearances, people who are on farms and in Home Depot parking lots. And the focus has been going after these individuals, but not the counterterrorism investigations. I mean, just in the past few weeks, we've seen reports like this. FBI reassignment to immigration enforcement may impact counterterrorism. We've seen the Trump regime trying to remove counterterrorism funding from blue states as well. And of course, you remember this guy right here. He's a 22-year-old by the name of Thomas Fugate, and he's the Department of Homeland Security's lead terrorism prevention official. And this guy's background was he was a landscaper and grocery clerk. He was a Trump supporter. And because he was a Trump fan, they gave this guy the top job in counterterrorism in the FBI, basically an intern to then lead the FBI's counterterrorism, to combat violent extremism. Remember, the Trump regime has gutted that division of the FBI, and they let this guy read it. As Juliet Kayyem explains, evisceration of counterterrorism and counter cyber capacities here are basically preceding this is something that was a major factor that people were just worried about. In general, this hasn't stopped the right-wing pundits on state regime media Fox from trying to spew their lies and their propaganda and try to make this about Biden and Democrats. And the first talking point that these MAGAs on state regime media were saying is, oh, it's Mark Kelly's fault and it's all of the Democratic lawmakers because they said to the military that you should not follow unlawful orders, referring to the military strikes in Venezuela that are deemed war crimes. But just in general, that's a restatement of the law of the military. But MAGA was pushing right after this horrific shooting took place in Washington, D.C. They said, remember why this happened. It's Mark Kelly's fault, Senator Kelly's fault, Congressmember DeLuzio's fault, Senator Slotkin's fault. It's these Democrats' fault. And then when they found out it was a Afghan national, they were like, it's Biden's fault. It's Mayorkas's fault. It's their fault. Instead of taking a step back and actually trying to understand what the hell happened, who granted asylum, and it was Trump who granted asylum. So again, let's take a look at what these MAGA Republican Congress members like Card or let's take a look at what this guy had to say. MAGA Republican on Fox, play this clip.
Well, we should react because let's face it, the left-wing politicians, I should say, they have blood on their hands. I mean, when Elisa Stockton makes a statement like this and then later follows it by saying that she encourages the military not to listen to their commander-in-chief, when John Ossoff calls troops being in Washington, D.C. an embarrassment, when Abigail Spanberger says, let rage fuel you, those comments have an effect. And that's why the left-wing politicians have blood on their hands. It results in the kind of things that we're seeing right here tonight. Every opportunity I have when I'm in Washington, D.C., when I see a National Guardsman, I thank them for being there. They have made Washington a place where I'm proud to be anymore. It is so nice to be able to walk around and not be in fear and not be harassed. And I appreciate them being there. I appreciate our president recognizing the fact that it needed to be addressed, and we did need more help in Washington, D.C., and we need it in other cities as well.
Then they brought in John Krupinski to spew propaganda. Play this clip.
Well, again, it's pretty sad, but the Democrats only have one playbook. There's one page in that book. If you go back to 2020, they did it with the police. First they vilify, then they dehumanize. 2024, they did it with President Trump. He's a Nazi, dehumanize him. Now, for some reason, in this, last week, we have 6 senators that went on there and vilified and dehumanized our military. If you do that enough, there will be someone who will come out and act out on it. And that's what we're seeing again. Same page, same playbook, different community this time. And it's disgusting what they would do to go out there and say that the troops that the troops shouldn't follow any illegal order. You don't say that unless somebody's actually doing that, which there's nothing to indicate that that was the case. But here we are vilifying and dehumanizing our troops now. And here's the result of it.
Here was James Comer spewing propaganda. Play this clip.
This just in, sources are telling Fox News that the shooter is an illegal immigrant from Afghanistan who came in during Operation Allies, welcome under the Biden administration. And he overstayed that visa. All right, Chairman. So Fox News is learning that this person was here illegally, overstayed his visa, and that's who this shooter profile is. What's your immediate reaction?
Well, my immediate reaction is we tried desperately to get an accounting of all the people that came from Afghanistan to the United States during that disastrous withdrawal during the Biden administration. That was a huge priority for the House Oversight Committee. We never got that information. We were never allowed to get that information because I don't think the government had any idea. I don't think they kept an accurate accounting. And if they did, I think they realized there were probably lots of gaps. We were told there were going to be about 2,000 people that had worked with our military as people that tried to help with the cause to help protect our troops in Afghanistan. Right. But then at the end of the day, there were closer to 100,000. But we don't know what that number was, and I don't think the government has kept good track of it. And I'm sure there were mistakes that were made.
Congressman, I'm cutting both of you off. I really do appreciate it. Thanks for joining us on this breaking news night.
And you'll see that when one of the Fox guests didn't speak the language that the regime wanted, they snapped at him. Watch what happens here, where this Fox guest, Williams, talks about how, why are we sending more National Guard in? Trump wants to put 500 more National Guard. They shouldn't be there doing this stuff. Here, play this clip.
Well, they've got additional information that they haven't shared with the public, that it is a targeted shooting, sadly. But I think we need to stick away from this Democrat-Republican. We've got two National Guardsmen who have been shot in the District of Columbia. One of my deepest concerns right now is that the president has decided to send 500 additional National Guard members to the District of Columbia. And I'm asking, why in the hell are you doing that, President? I hope you rethink that, because the sad part about this right now is that the National Guard are out there on the streets and they're deeply concerned. They know that 2 of their fellow National Guardsmen have been shot, and they are going to be on a high state of alert. And the last thing we need in the District of Columbia or anywhere else is another Kent state.
Ted, are the National Guardsmen the good guys or the bad guys? They're the good guys. And I can't believe that if you're but Ted, hold on a sec. Hold on. Okay. Why do you want less good guys? I'm shocked to hear you say that.
Now, I will also show you Democratic Congressmember DeLuzio, who has the right approach here. And he's like, can we take a step back and just, before we even know what happens, MAGA's blaming me and blaming Senator Kelly? Like, what the heck is going on? Here, play this clip.
The brothers and sisters in arms they serve with, their families in West Virginia, just awful news. And I really, if you're a praying type, pray that those two folks come through.
I mean, obviously, the latest we know is they are in critical condition right now, being treated in separate hospitals. Now, it didn't take long, Congressman. After these shootings, people did start posting online criticizing you and the 5 other Democratic members of Congress for posting your video, suggesting that it may somehow have put a target on the National Guardsmen's backs. Now, I know you didn't mention any specific orders in the video, but some critics of the president have suggested that National Guard deployments around the country, broadly speaking, are not always legal. So I wanted to give you a chance to respond to some of this criticism, which I'm sure you've already seen.
Yeah, it's just crazy stuff, outrageous stuff. I mean, it's been, what, a half hour since we've even learned any basic facts about the alleged shooter here. Dangerous rhetoric. And let's be clear, the only threats and calls for violence came from the president and his supporters after he called for our arrest.
So there you have it, folks. We'll keep you posted every step of the way, but seems that this asylum application granted by the Trump regime in 2025, and now they want to act like they didn't know what they were doing. Thanks for watching. Hit subscribe. Let's get to 6 million subscribers.
Follow Blue Eye Media for exclusive insights and breaking news sources from global-friendly outlets that you'll never get from the mainstream cable TV and antenna radio or satellite outlets. Learn how to play the flute of the world and learn the real facts.